Last Tuesday, I walked into my own house and realized I was about to become the main character in some twisted experiment. It was late afternoon, sunlight leaking through the kitchen blinds, when I heard my wife's voice, Laura, laughing on speakerphone. I almost called out, but something in her tone made me stop right there in the mudroom. She was talking to her coworkers again, Brooke, Chloe, and Haley, the same trio who'd been feeding her strange empowerment advice for months. "You're way too available, Laura," Brooke said, her voice dripping with confidence. "Men don't value what they don't have to fight for." "Exactly," Chloe added. "When my boyfriend started taking me for granted, I ghosted him for 3 days. Now he's obsessed." I stood frozen, my keys still in my hand, heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo inside my skull. Laura sounded hesitant, almost unsure. "I don't know, guys. Ethan and I don't really play those kinds of games. We talk things out." "That's your problem," Haley jumped in. "You're making it too easy for him. This isn't lying, it's strategy. You need to create space, show him that you're the prize." "What does that even mean?" Laura asked. Brooke laughed. "It means you go cold. No texts, no calls, minimal talking at home. For a full week. Watch what happens." "A week?" Laura sounded stunned. "That's extreme." "Not really," Chloe said. "My cousin did that with her fiancé. He was begging for her attention by day 3. Upgraded her ring by day 7. Their laughter rang through the kitchen like nails scraping glass. I felt my stomach turn. Haley added quietly. "And document everything. I want to see how fast he panics." My chest tightened. They weren't talking about a joke. They were planning to psychologically test me for sport. My wife, the woman I'd trusted with my life, was actually considering it. I gripped the doorframe so hard my knuckles went white. Brooke said, "If he loves you, he'll fight for your attention. If he doesn't, well, now you know." Laura sighed, that uncertain sound that always meant she was convincing herself to do something she knew was wrong. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. "He's been comfortable lately. Maybe too comfortable." "Exactly," Haley said. "Comfort kills passion. Time to shake things up. Start this weekend," Brooke commanded. "We'll check in every day." That was it. That was the moment something in me snapped, quietly and completely. I wasn't angry, not yet. What I felt was sharper than rage, colder. I realized I'd married someone who thought love was something to measure instead of nurture. Someone willing to manipulate her husband just to feel powerful in front of her friends. And if she wanted to test me, I'd make sure she learned something unforgettable. I stepped back from the door, silent, controlled. I walked out through the garage and sat in my car for a long time, staring at nothing. The hum of the engine sounded like static in my head. Every word I'd overheard kept replaying: ghost him, no texts, create space, test him. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Instead, I took out my phone, opened the Notes app, and wrote one sentence: "If she wants to play games, I'll show her how they end." I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. And I sure as hell wasn't going to chase someone who saw our marriage as an experiment. No, I would vanish. Not out of spite, but out of principle. I would disappear so completely that when she finally stopped pretending, she'd discover just how empty her world felt without me in it. I drove to a nearby park, Confluence, down by the river, and sat there for hours. The water moved slow and dark under the bridge, and I thought about how easily people destroy the things they take for granted. I thought about Laura's laugh on that call, how light it sounded, how far away from the woman I thought I knew. The sun dipped lower. My phone buzzed once, a calendar reminder. Grocery pickup at 6. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted the notification. No more routines. No more pretending. When I finally came home that evening, Laura was at the stove humming softly, her hair tucked behind one ear, the picture of domestic calm. "Hey, honey," she said with a smile, kissing my cheek. "Dinner'll be ready soon." I nodded. My voice came out steady, detached. Store was out of what I needed. I'll grab it this weekend. She didn't notice the difference in my tone. She turned back to the pan, humming again. That night, as we lay in bed, she drifted off easily. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake, listening to the slow rhythm of her breathing. Tomorrow was Friday. The day she'd start her little experiment. The day she'd start pretending I didn't exist. I turned my head and looked at her in the dark, memorizing her face. She had no idea that by the time her test was over, she wouldn't recognize her life anymore. Friday morning came quietly. Laura moved through the house with calculated distance, her voice polite, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. It was almost impressive how quickly she slipped into her role, the cold silence, the sudden busyness, the way she kept her phone close like it was her lifeline. I made coffee, poured her a cup, and set it on the counter beside her. She didn't even look up. Thanks, she said flatly, scrolling through emails. I smiled to myself, a small, private smile. The game had begun. I left for work, but my mind wasn't there. Instead, I was making a checklist in my head: finances, housing, legal protection, logistics. If she wanted to ghost me, I would become a ghost for real. By the time the clock hit noon, I had already called a lawyer. His name was Jonathan Pierce, a quiet man with a calm voice that didn't ask unnecessary questions. I explained that I wanted to separate finances, protect my assets, and document everything. He asked if there was infidelity or abuse. I said no, just manipulation. He sighed like he'd heard it 1,000 times. Then we'll move efficiently, he said. Send me copies of your joint statements, and I'll prepare the transfer. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at my reflection in the office window. My eyes looked strange, not angry, not sad. Just done. I went to the bank that afternoon and opened a new personal account. Transferred half of our joint savings, left every transaction trail clean and visible. No pettiness. No revenge. Just precision. Saturday morning, Laura was in full performance mode. She woke early, put on real clothes though she wasn't going anywhere, and made sure to act busy. She cleaned things that were already spotless, worked on her laptop for hours, and when I asked simple questions, she gave short, polite answers. Want lunch? I asked. I already ate. Need anything from the store? No, I'm fine. The coldness was intentional, sharp. I nodded and went upstairs, hiding the faint smile that kept threatening to appear. She thought she was in control. She had no idea the foundation under her feet was crumbling. I spent most of Saturday executing the plan. First stop, the bank again, to finalize account access. Second stop, a small law office downtown to sign separation documents. Third, a visit to a short-term rental I'd found the night before. It was a furnished one-bedroom overlooking the river, clean and quiet. I signed the lease on the spot. Month to month. Move-in Thursday. Perfect. On the way home, I stopped by a storage facility. Rented a medium-sized unit and bought a set of heavy-duty boxes. Each receipt, each signature, I photographed. Proof of calm intent. Proof that I wasn't reacting emotionally, but deliberately. When I came home that evening, Laura was in the bedroom with the door closed, headphones in, laughter spilling from the cracks under the frame. I didn't have to guess who she was talking to. The experiment committee. Probably celebrating how well it was going. Has he cracked yet? I imagined them asking. Has he begged for attention? I walked past the door, quiet as a shadow, and headed to the garage. The first 2 boxes went into my car that night. Books, old clothes, some tools. Nothing noticeable. Sunday was more of the same. She kept her distance, wearing that mask of busy independence, like a badge of honor. I made breakfast, but she barely touched it. When I asked if she was okay, she smiled faintly. Just work stress. That was all. I nodded, pretending to buy it. Inside, though, I was somewhere else entirely, calm, calculating, cold. I spent the afternoon sorting through our house, mentally dividing everything, mine, hers, ours. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop, color-coded each category, and started noting serial numbers, purchase dates, ownership receipts. The more I organized, the less I felt. It was like shutting off a switch inside me. That night, after she went to bed early, I started packing again. The sound of cardboard tape peeling through the dark felt like a secret rhythm, final, clean, inevitable. I packed my childhood baseball glove, my grandfather's watch, photo albums she never looked at, half of the cookware, and a few shirts from the back of the closet. I loaded the car again, quiet as ever. Monday morning, she was gone before sunrise. I called in sick, stayed home, and kept working. Moved another batch to storage. Cleared out half the garage. Changed passwords. Cancelled shared subscriptions. When she came home that evening, she didn't notice a thing. She barely looked up. "Busy day," she muttered, dropping her bag. I smiled. "Same." Tuesday, I repeated the same pattern. She left early. I packed. I moved. I deleted. By evening, I sat on the couch in an almost empty living room, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. Laura was in the other room, still pretending. I opened my phone and reread my list. Everything was in motion. The apartment keys were in my pocket. The bank transfer was complete. The lawyer had sent the first draft of separation papers. By Thursday, everything would be done. And she wouldn't even know until it was over. I looked down at my wedding ring, smooth, familiar, worn from 5 years of use. I turned it slowly on my finger. Then I slid it off and set it on the coffee table. The small sound it made when it touched the wood felt louder than anything she'd said to me all week. I whispered to the empty room. "You wanted silence, Laura. You got it." By Wednesday, everything was in place. I had spent the entire day moving what was left: my desk, my recliner, my tools, the second set of dining chairs. I left half of everything behind, cleanly divided. No trace of anger, just clarity. When I looked around that house, it already felt like a stranger's home. The memories were still there, hanging in the air, but they didn't belong to me anymore. Laura left for work before 7 that morning, probably proud of how well she was sticking to her plan. She hadn't said good morning in days. She didn't realize it was the last time she'd ever see me there. I spent the afternoon writing. The letter had to be simple, sharp, impossible to twist. It took 3 drafts before I got it right, calm, factual, final. When I signed my name, I felt a strange lightness, like a cord had been cut. Thursday night, Laura came home late, laughing on the phone again with her coworkers. I sat quietly in the half-empty living room, waiting for her to pass. "Day 7 tomorrow," Brooke's voice echoed faintly from the hallway. "Bet he's desperate by now." "We'll see," Laura said, her tone smug and playful. "I think it's working." They laughed together, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just distance. A complete and total disconnect. When she went to the bedroom and shut the door, I stayed up through the night, finishing the last details, forwarding my mail, updating my insurance, removing my name from every shared utility. At 5:30 Friday morning, the world was quiet. I stood in the kitchen, placed the envelope against the coffee maker, the one she used every single morning, and took one last look around. The air smelled like her perfume and something faintly burnt from the candles she liked. It didn't hurt anymore. It just felt over. I left the key on the counter and walked out without looking back. By sunrise, I was already in my new apartment across the river, boxes stacked neatly, everything in order. I turned off my phone, disabled location sharing, deactivated social media. For the first time in years, there was silence, not the kind she'd created, but the kind that actually meant peace. Meanwhile, Laura's victory day began. She met Brooke, Chloe, and Haley after work for drinks, glowing with false confidence. "So," Chloe grinned, raising her glass. "Did he break yet?" "Nope," Laura said proudly. "He's been calm, but I can tell he missed me. He's probably planning something sweet tonight." "See?" Brooke said. "You taught him balance. You took back your power." They laughed, all of them so certain, so sure they understood how relationships worked. Laura stayed for one drink, then hurried home, eager to see me again, to see her. Results. She rehearsed her lines on the way. I just needed space, Ethan. I think this was good for us. I hope you understand. She parked, grabbed her purse, and walked in through the front door. Honey, I'm home, she called, her tone bright and teasing. Silence. She frowned, setting her bag on the counter. That was when she saw it, the envelope, propped neatly against the coffee maker, her name written across the front in my handwriting. Something in her chest tightened. This wasn't part of the plan. She opened it slowly, eyes darting across the page. Her face strained of color. The letter read, Laura, I know about your experiment. I heard everything last Tuesday, the phone call with Brooke, Chloe, and Haley. I listened to them convince you to ignore me for a week to test my reaction, to see if I'd fight for your attention. And I heard you agree. You wanted to play a game. But I don't play games with people I love. I don't chase someone who sees me as an experiment. I don't beg to be noticed. I've spent this week preparing, not to win you back, but to protect myself. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've taken exactly half of our savings, left documentation for everything, and removed my name from every shared account. I took what was mine before we met and half of what we built together. You'll find receipts for every transaction in this envelope. I'm not angry, Laura. Just done. The woman I married would never have needed to test me to feel powerful. She would have talked to me. But you decided that manipulation was more satisfying than communication. So here's your result. You wanted space? Now you have it. You wanted silence? Enjoy it. Ethan. Her hands shook as she finished reading. The letter slipped to the floor. She ran through the house, the bedroom, the closet, the bathroom, and that was when panic set in. My side of the closet was empty. My drawers empty. My toothbrush, razor, watch, gone. The nightstand missing entirely. She ran to the garage, tools gone, camping gear gone, half the shelves bare. She pulled out her phone and dialed my number. The number you have reached is no longer in service. The robotic voice echoed through the kitchen. She tried texting. Message failed to deliver. She opened her banking app. Half of the joint savings, gone. Not stolen, just divided. Perfectly, precisely. I had left everything fair and clean. No cruelty. No revenge. Just consequence. She slid down the wall of the now half-empty bedroom, clutching the letter to her chest. The house was too quiet now, every echo a reminder of how certain she'd been that she could play with someone's heart and still keep their love. She tested my loyalty. And found out I loved myself enough to walk away. The days that followed were chaos for Laura. She called my brother, my best friend, even my lawyer's office. Everyone gave her the same calm, measured response. I did not want to be contacted. I needed space. Real space. Her calls went unanswered, her messages unread. The silence she thought she could control was now swallowing her whole. By Monday, she looked like a ghost herself, dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking every time her phone buzzed. When Brooke called that morning, Laura's voice was hoarse. He's gone, Brooke. He actually left. Left? Brooke repeated, half disbelieving. Come on, Laura, he's just bluffing. Guys always come back. No, Laura said, her voice breaking. He moved out. His lawyer called me. There are documents, real ones. For a moment, there was only static on the line. Then Brooke sighed, annoyed. Well, that's on you. We told you to test him, not drive him away. That was the moment something in Laura's tone changed, a low, angry tremor. You told me this would make him appreciate me more. You told me I'd have control. You do, Chloe cut in. You just have to give it time. He's probably sulking. Sulking? Laura snapped. He liquidated half our accounts. He signed legal papers. Does that sound like sulking? The silence that followed was heavier than before. Then Haley spoke, but her voice was different, softer, almost cautious. Laura, maybe you should just stay quiet for now. Let him cool off. Laura hung up without replying. She sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the empty space where my coffee mug used to be. For the first time, she realized this wasn't a power struggle anymore. It was reality. That night, she decided to confront them in person. She drove to a bar downtown where they often met after work. Brooke and Chloe were already there, laughing over drinks. Haley wasn't. When Laura approached their table, both of them froze. Well, look who decided to join us, Brooke said carefully. You look awful. You did this, Laura said. Her voice didn't rise, it dropped lower, steadier. You told me to test him. You made me believe it would make him fight for me. We didn't make you do anything, Brooke replied, rolling her eyes. You wanted to feel empowered. We just helped. Laura's eyes darkened. You didn't help. You ruined my marriage. Chloe shifted uncomfortably, setting her drink down. It's not our fault he overreacted. Overreacted? Laura repeated, almost laughing. He packed up his life because I ignored him on your advice. You don't call that cause and effect? And then, the twist hit like a bullet. The bar door opened, and Haley walked in, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man Laura didn't recognize. A tall man in a dark jacket. He looked serious, confident, and then Laura's blood ran cold. It was my lawyer, Jonathan Pierce. The man who'd helped me plan my exit. Laura blinked, her pulse hammering. What the hell is this? She demanded. Haley didn't flinch. Laura, she said quietly. You need to know something. Ethan didn't just overhear that call. I told him. Brooke and Chloe froze mid-breath. What? Laura whispered. Why? Because I couldn't watch it happen, Haley said. You were letting them turn your marriage into a circus. They laughed about it when you weren't around, made bets on how long it would take before you broke him. Laura stared at Brooke, disbelief mixing with horror. Tell me that's not true. Brooke smirked, but her eyes flickered. It was just a joke. A joke? Haley snapped. You recorded her. You literally said you'd sell the audio to your stupid relationship podcast. Laura's throat went dry. You recorded me? Relax, Brooke said, shrugging. It's anonymous. Nobody knows it's you. Jonathan stepped forward. Actually, we do now, he said calmly, holding up a manila folder. That anonymous recording is already in legal evidence. Ethan asked me to document everything, and thanks to your little side project, we have proof of malicious interference in a marriage. Brooke's smirk vanished. You can't be serious. I'm very serious, Jonathan replied. Defamation, invasion of privacy, emotional manipulation. If Ethan wanted to, he could file criminal charges. Laura stood there, shaking, unable to process it. Haley's voice softened again. Ethan didn't want revenge, Laura. He wanted you to see what kind of people you were listening to. Laura turned toward her friends, no, her former friends, and realized that the betrayal wasn't just mine anymore. They had used her, played her, recorded her humiliation for their entertainment. The entire experiment had been a performance for an audience she didn't even know existed. She whispered, You were betting on me? Brooke looked away. Chloe tried to speak but couldn't. Haley stepped closer. I told Ethan everything the day after that call. He asked me not to say a word until it was done. He wanted you to see the truth without interference. I agreed because someone had to stop you before they destroyed you completely. Laura sank into a chair, her hands trembling. He knew. This whole time he knew. Haley nodded. He knew, and he let it play out so you'd understand what manipulation really feels like. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Jonathan set a card on the table, his office address. If you ever want to make things right, he said to Laura, there are steps you can take. But the first one is simple. Cut them out of your life for good. When he and Haley left, the bar fell silent. Brooke muttered something under her breath and stormed out. Chloe followed, avoiding Laura's eyes. Laura sat there alone, staring at the folded letter she still carried in her purse. She finally understood. The experiment wasn't hers anymore. I had turned it back on her. I'd been the one testing all along. And she had failed. 3 weeks passed before I agreed to see her. My lawyer had relayed every attempt she made to reach me, letters, emails, even an apology video she never sent. I read none of it. Silence was the only thing that made sense after what she'd done. But when Jonathan called and said she had met every condition I'd set, ending all contact with Brooke and Chloe, transferring to a different department, starting therapy, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Just readiness. We met in his office first. Laura looked smaller somehow, like life had shrunk her down to her guilt. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her hands trembled slightly as she held the edge of her chair. I sat across from her, composed, detached. Jonathan kept his tone professional. "Laura, you requested this mediation." Ethan agreed under clear terms. "There will be no discussion outside of respect and accountability. Understood?" She nodded. Her voice was a whisper. "Yes." When Jonathan left us alone for a few minutes, the silence was almost unbearable. She finally spoke. "You knew everything. From the beginning." I nodded slowly. "From the moment you started planning it. Haley told me. She couldn't stand watching them use you like that." Her face crumpled. "So that means, everything I said, everything I did, you already knew." "Yes," I said. "I let it play out because I needed you to see how it feels to be on the receiving end of manipulation. You wanted control, and I wanted you to see what control actually costs." Tears gathered, but I didn't move. "Ethan," she whispered, "I don't even recognize myself anymore. Those women, they made me think power meant withholding love. They didn't make you," I said evenly. "You chose to listen. You chose to test me." She lowered her head. "I know. And I lost you." "You didn't lose me," I corrected. "You gave me away. Piece by piece, every time you treated love like leverage." We sat in silence. I could see how broken she looked, but pity wasn't what I felt, it was clarity. "Do you know what was hardest for me?" I said finally. "Not the silence. Not the games. It was realizing how quickly you believed the people who mocked what we built. That told me everything I needed to know." She nodded slowly. "I understand that now. I've been seeing a therapist every week. I quit that department. I haven't spoken to them since that night at the bar. I know you have no reason to trust me again. But I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed." Her words hit the air like glass, fragile, honest, maybe even real. I studied her for a long moment. Then I said, "Trust doesn't return with promises, Laura. It comes back one action at a time." We began counseling after that day. At first, the sessions were stiff, distant. She'd talk, I'd listen. I'd talk, she'd cry. But as weeks went by, the noise around us quieted. No manipulation, no advice from anyone else, just raw honesty. One session, she said something that stayed with me. "You taught me what silence really means. It isn't punishment. It's reflection." And she was right. Because silence is where you hear the truth echo loudest. Month 3, I asked to meet her outside of therapy. We met at a small cafe by the river, the same one near my apartment. She looked stronger now, not confident, not yet, but grounded. "Do you still love me?" she asked. I thought about it before answering. "Yes," I said finally. "But it's different. I love you carefully now. From a distance I built myself." She smiled faintly. "That's fair." We met weekly after that, slowly building something fragile and new. No guarantees. No promises. Just time and truth. By month 6, I agreed to come home for dinner. The house looked different, emptier, but cleaner somehow. My ring still sat on the coffee table, right where I'd left it. She hadn't touched it. I picked it up, turned it in my hand. You kept it here, I said. I didn't feel like I had the right to move it, she replied softly. It belonged to who I used to be. We ate in silence. When we finished, she looked up, eyes steady for the first time in months. Ethan, I know I can't erase what I did. But I learned something in the wreckage. I learned that real love isn't a test you pass. It's a boundary you protect. You taught me that. I looked at her for a long time. There was pain, yes, but also truth. The kind you can't fake. You wanted to see how much I valued you, I said. Now you know. Enough to walk away when you disrespected both of us. She nodded, tears silent but calm. And I see how much I lost pretending to be powerful. That night, I left the ring on the table again, not out of rejection, but as a reminder. Some things need to stay unfinished until they're earned. A month later, I returned to pick up the last of my things. Laura greeted me quietly. No expectations, no apologies, just a soft hi. And something in that stillness felt honest. For the first time, I believed she might actually be changing, not for me, but for herself. As I stood at the door, she asked, "Do you think there's still hope for us?" I thought about the woman who once plotted a game to test my love and the one standing before me now, stripped of all pretenses. Hope? I said. Maybe. But it's not something you test. It's something you earn. I left without looking back. Outside, the evening light spilled across the street, warm and uncertain. For the first time in months, I didn't feel haunted. I felt free. Because love isn't about proving who wins. It's about knowing when to stop playing.